We submitted each other this time?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Forest Creek Golf Club and Forest Creek Investors, LLC. I hope you're having a wonderful 4th of July. It's not been probably the one that I was hoping for this week, but certainly been a nice one. I'm John Giles. I'm the chairman of the Board of Managers for Forest Creek Investors, and I'll be the chairman of this meeting. I have been advised that there is a quorum present. Therefore, I call the meeting to order. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Dan Bradshaw again to give us a few observations.
Thank you, John. During the many conversations that have taken place, since our last meeting on Thursday, realized we didn't really tell you a lot about the board's process. One of the biggest misunderstandings is whether or not we're operating with or generating a positive cash flow. And I guess we want to assure you that we're not and give you some additional information. When FCI was created, we did not have a line of credit. The original expectations were that the club would be breaking even on a cash flow basis. We later arranged for a line of credit just to be able to smooth out some of the timing differences between the time when expenses were due and when the revenues would be available to pay them. Our first line of credit was with Pulaski Bank, and it was set at $500,000. As is typical for lines of credit, there was a requirement that the line would be paid down to zero at least once each year. After all, a line of credit is to assist with timing differences of cash flows. It's not designed to be a permanent part of the debt structure. Well, since that time, the line has been refinanced with First Citizens. They dropped the requirement to pay the line down to zero, and because we've not been able to otherwise meet our obligations, that line has been maxed out at $500,000 for quite some time now. The fact is we cannot pay it down, and it has actually now become a permanent part of our debt structure. In addition to maxing out the line of credit, the club has still had significant cash flow shortages. In order to have the cash necessary to keep things operating over the last several years, we've had to rely on the goodwill of a number of members and some employees to help keep us cash flow solvent. We now owe individuals hundreds of thousands of dollars that have been due and payable. We have not paid them, not because we didn't want to, but because we didn't have the cash to pay them. During the first 6 months of this year, cash flow has been a topic of increasing concern. In order to be able to make payroll and keep our lights on through June 30, the FCI board members were asked to prepay our dues in order to give us the cash necessary to get by. We did. So in short, we've remained cash flow solvent simply by not spending cash we did not have. This bare bones approach has starved our courses and our properties, and it's ballooned our payables. It's an issue will have to be resolved one way or another. But during the past 6 months, the board's been dealing with these cash flow shortages while also analyzing and embracing the fact that we need to invest millions of dollars into the courses and the facilities that we have. This challenge, of course, was magnified by our knowledge that FCR was not going to be able to sell enough real estate to be able to supply the cash to meet these needs. In fact, we have an analysis that shows if the value of all of our real estate holdings, if we were sold in bulk, might be able to repay FCI's debt. Of course, that would provide nothing to invest in the courses. All these facts were, of course, sobering indeed, but it gets worse. Based upon the trend of the past several years, and a trend that was still in force in early 2017, we are losing more members than we are gaining. Our dues-paying base is shrinking, and the overall financial situation, therefore, is promising to get worse. We as a board never approached Manchester about selling the club, but we were approached by them after a couple of our members put the ideas in their head. So while there are aspects of this negotiation that we certainly wish would have been different, there is a deal on the table. If it closes, the deal will cover the cash flow shortage. It will provide the millions to renovate the courses. It will preserve an aspect of a private club by virtue of member-only locker rooms and exclusive access to a course each day. And of course, we also believe that it will provide new amenities to be enjoyed by the entire membership. As importantly, based on Manchester's reputation, it will provide 5-star professional management in all aspects of Forest Creek. And according to a number of our local realtors, they say the prospect of Manchester coming in is creating new and significant interest in Forest Creek. This interest is expected to enhance property values and provide liquidity for those members who've been trying to leave the club. So it's because of these many positives provided by this deal, and due to the lack of any other viable alternative, the FCI board did pursue the transaction. And we did so with the belief that doing this was in the best interest of our FCI shareholders and of our fellow members of the club. We just wanted to know the thought process that's unfolded in the last 6 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Your comments are very informative, and I'm sure a lot of us didn't understand all that. Again, thank all of you for being here today. So far, the voting on the MFG transaction has been overwhelmingly positive. Of those that have voted, over 85% have voted yes.
I do apologize. I did miss something. We found out just before the meeting today that Chuck Cordell has volunteered to take a discount on his commission because he thinks this transaction is in the best interest of shareholders and members as well. And so I just want to thank Chuck for making that kind of a contribution, and I thought everybody should know that as well. Thank you.
I knew that was in the works, but I couldn't tell you that. There's a lot of legal jargon that has to be gone through today, and so most of this script I will be reading simply because they told me I couldn't ad-lib it. The first point of the meeting will be on Forest Creek Golf Club. Our first item of business for members of the club is to consider the transaction with Manchester Financial Group. As part of this proposal, we are asking you to vote on the sale of substantially all of the assets of the club to an entity owned by Manchester Financial, the termination of the 1994 club purchase agreement. This transaction will occur pursuant to the terms of the purchase agreement, which is attached to the proxy statement. To be approved, this proposal requires the affirmative vote of a majority of members of the club, a majority of the members of the club who are also not investors of FCI. Next, members of the club will be asked to consider a proposal to dissolve the club if the MFG is approved. This proposal must be approved by a majority of the members of this club. All of these proposals were described in the proxy statements. I now move to submit to the members of the club for their consideration. That is my motion. Thank you, George. These proposals are now before the meeting. If you have already returned your proxy, you don't need to vote now unless you want to. If you intend to vote by ballot, please do so now. And if you would like a ballot, raise your hand. John, where are you? We will give you a few moments to process the ballots, and then John will collect them. So as you finish filling them out, if you'll raise your hand, John will pick them up. Anybody else need a pen? Any other ballots? There being no further ballots to collect, I hereby declare the polls for the club to be, wait a minute, I'm sorry, got two more, John. Got one more at the door. What is it? Any other ballots? There being no further ballots to collect, I hereby declare the polls for the club vote to be closed. While we tabulate the votes, let's have a short recess to give John and Pete a chance to collect the votes and count them. Let's plan for 15 minutes. 3:30. We're still in recess, but I wanted to bring one thing up. If you're an FCI member and you have not turned in a proxy or a vote, please do so now. If you don't have one and need one, would you raise your hand and we'll get it to you. This first part was club vote only. Thank you. Sorry for the delay, but they're still tabulating votes. Be right with you. We still don't have the votes, but just to kill a little time, Nick pointed out that I was from South Carolina, so he thought I should read the South Carolina rules of manners. Never take a beer to a job interview. Always identify people in your yard before shooting at them. Always identify them before you shoot at them. It's considered poor taste to take a cooler to church. If you have to vacuum the bed, it's time to change the sheets. Even if you're certain that you are included in the will, it is still considered tacky to drive a U-Haul to the funeral home. I may be back. At this point, we're going to go back through some more legalese. So I will be reading most of the script. At this point, we'll proceed with the FCI part of the business. Our first item of business is for FCI to consider the transaction with Manchester Financial. As part of this proposal, we're asking you to vote on the sale of substantially all the assets of FCI to an equity owned by Manchester Financial, to terminate the 1994 club purchase agreement. This transaction will concur pursuant to the terms of the purchase agreement which you currently have. To be approved, this proposal requires the affirmative vote of the majority of FCI members. Next, the members of FCI will be asked to consider a proposal to dissolve the club. If the MFG is approved, the proposal must be approved by 2/3 majority of the FCI members. All of these proposals are described in the proxy statement. I got corrected. I said 2/3 majority. It has to be a 2/3 approval of all of the FCI votes. Are there any other FCI votes? If not, the voting is closed. And now John Boozer is going to bring us the tally for both segments of the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. All of the proposals have passed.
This has been a hard and obviously thankless job. I'm sure the members of the board and the previous members of the board never envisioned having to do this in a golf club that they bought into and loved so much for the last 20+ years. Certainly, I have not had a lot of fun doing it. I think this proposal will put us to where we've always wanted to be. The financing of MFG is substantial. We think from what they have told us that they will make the improvements on the golf club, that the $3 million that is in the proposal, they are already telling us it's going to be substantially more than that, but they did not want to put it in writing. I think the membership agreement that they submit at some point will be one that we will all accept. Certainly there may be sentences or paragraphs that we don't particularly like, but it will be a very good golf club and one that I'm certainly proud to be a member of. I thank all of you for coming on this holiday weekend, for being here. I hope you have a great 4th of July, and God bless America.